Hey, this is Ralph. In this video, we're going to make a budget that we could use as a college student here. So I found this picture. This is just a screenshot of a budget for a college student, but it's got a pie chart on here. It's got this cool little chart up here, which I don't know if we would do that one or we could do something similar to it. But I'd like us to be able to create this in Excel relatively easily. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the process that I might use to make something that looks similar to this, or at the very least inspired by this. Now I might use this activity for several classes. I'm going to go ahead and save my worksheet, and I guess for now I will just save, you know what, I think I'll just save to my desktop. Actually, I'm going to go to nope, I'm lying to you. I'm going to save this into my Google Drive. I'll just stick it right there, and I'll just call it College Student Budget. There we go. Because you're going to be turning this Excel file in, so you definitely want to save it someplace where you can easily find it, access it later on. Okay, now I do have the picture off to the side that I'm going to be referencing, and I'll bring it over from time to time just so we can see how we're doing. But otherwise, I'm going to keep it on my second monitor here, so it's kind of in my view shed, but not taking up my primary working space. But it looks like what we've got is we've got a little title up there. We've got all the financials down here, and it doesn't look like it's going to be complicated calculations. Looks like we'll just be doing a little bit of subtraction, taking income minus expenses, a little bit of addition here and there, and then we're going to make at least one chart, but I think we might end up doing another chart. So we might end up putting this chart a little bit lower down, and we'll take this little simple bar chart looking thing and maybe stick that over here, or some variation of it. I'm not sure if I'm actually cooling a little bit on it. I don't know if it's as helpful as I originally thought. Okay, so I'm going to put that picture off to the side. And I guess I'll go ahead and start off right here in cell A1. I'm going to write College Budget Analysis. There we go. So we got a little bit of a title going on. Now, sometimes I like to take these titles for a spreadsheet, make them kind of big and chunky, have it span multiple cells. I guess I can do that. I don't know how far I'll end up going, but I'll go ahead and select a range of cells, and I'll just do merge and center. Now, sometimes doing merge and center can cause you problems with your data, but since this title is going to be right up there at the very top, I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern for us. And I'll just go ahead and make that font nice and chunky, and I'll give it a background color. Okay, so next order of business is to kind of go through and put in these areas. Now, I think I'm going to jump down a little bit. I'm going to kind of ignore, well, actually, I take it back. I'm just going to ignore this little chart part. But I do want to get this income expenses coming in. But I can see that the income really is going to be a sum, accumulation of what's down here. So this is just kind of like summary information up here at the top. So I'm not going to manually type in that 3,400 or manually type in this 2,994. I think I'm going to grab those numbers from the data that I have down here. So even if you do forget the sequence and you type things out in Excel, it's really easy to move them around after the fact, of course. I'm just going to pick on a cell here. I'll pick on cell A3. Let me zoom in even more, make this really big. So I'm going to go ahead and click on cell A3, and I'll just go ahead and write in income. I'm just going to press my enter key. I'm going to write expenses, do my enter key, and then they call it balance. I'm going to say the net. I like that word better. I want to give myself a little line space, and I'll do this section here. Money coming in, and I'm going to go ahead and put in item, and then I'll press my tab key and I'll write in amount, enter, and let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and fill out what they've got on here. Go ahead and type this along yourself. Estimated income, financial aid, roommate contribution, and assistance from parents. Okay, and then we have a place for a total. And I guess I'll do that uppercase just like they do. I'm going to press my enter key a couple times, and then we have money going out. Okay, so now I'm going to write up the money going out section. And let's see, we've got our category and our cost. And housing, transportation, did I spell it right? I did. Food, personal care, entertainment, school costs, loans, I'm going to call it debt / credit cards. There we go. Now, and we need total again, so I'll go ahead and write the total. Yeah, so I've got the labels in for these various items. Now, the numbers that we will hard code are going to be basically the various income sources and the expense categories. So money going out as expenses, money coming in as income. So we'll manually type in those numbers, but then we want Excel to add them up for us. Now, you can just be following along with me doing these fields, even if they don't really apply to you, because if we get the calculations done properly, it really won't matter, and you can always delete one of the categories that doesn't apply to you, or you could add an additional category. So I'll show you that in just a minute. But let me go ahead and put in some numbers, and I'm just going to copy the numbers they have on here. Now, to make this a little bit prettier looking, I think what I will do is I'm going to take my column A, and I'm going to just widen it there. Now, of course, I could have just double-clicked put my cursor right between the A and the B column letters, double-click, and that auto-sizes it. So I like to auto-size and just go a little bit wider. And let's see. So, estimated income, what do they have on here? So they have $1,500, financial aid, $500, roommate contribution, $700, assistance from parents, $700, and then we have a place for our total. Several ways we can do this. Here's one way though. We can do Alt equals on Excel, and it'll type in our sum function for us. And I always like to look real quick to make sure it's getting the right range, and it looks like it's doing pretty good. It's summing B9 through B12. That's what I want. I just press enter to accept that, and I get 3,400. That is the right amount. And then down here for the expenses, they have housing cost at 906, transportation 430, food 200, personal care 140, entertainment 168. What an oddly specific number. School costs 975, and debt and credit cards 175. And then of course our total, I'll just do Alt equals again. Looks like it's adding it up properly. Enter. There we go, 2994. That's exactly the same numbers that I'm getting or seeing in the examples. 3,400, 2994. So feeling good about that. But what's nice about doing the formulas, of course, is that if we change one of these out, so if entertainment is actually $200 instead of 168, I want that total to automatically update. Okay? And then I can go up here, and I just want to take all of my expenses. So my expenses up at the top is going to be equal to, click the equal sign, and I'm just going to click on my total expenses cell. And that's going to plot basically kind of a formula right up there. I get that. And then for income equals, and I'm going to click on my total income. There we go. And then the net is going to be equal to the income minus the expenses, and we get the 374. Of course, my number is going to be a little bit off from theirs now because I adjusted my entertainment expense. But the calculation is the most important thing, and we do have that working. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm going to just zoom out just to kind of get an overview. All right, things are looking pretty good. Now, the examples definitely do look a little bit more nicely formatted. They've got some different cell colors. They've got dollar signs and stuff on some of these, and they've got a few little border lines here and there. That does look pretty darn nice. I have to agree. So we could do something similar. For instance, I can select all of these values. I'm going to hold down, I'm going to select a range, hold down my control key, and I'm going to select more numeric values. I still have my control key pressed down. That allows me to select non-contiguous ranges of cells. let go of the mouse, let go of the control key. So now all those number values are selected, and I can change them to accounting style. I like accounting style a little bit better because it gives me a fixed $ as opposed to a floating $. They're using a floating $ in the example, but I always like those $ lined up nice and neat over there on the left. Now, since I'm not showing any sense here, really not a lot of logic to me doing a bunch of decimals if I'm not needing them. So while those numbers are still selected, I'm going to get rid of the decimal places. Oops, I went the wrong way, so I'm going to decrease the decimals, get rid of those. There we go, that's looking a little better. I'm going to select the total. I'm going to select the total, once again using that control key. Select some cells, hold your control key, select more cells. And I'm going to go ahead and bold those. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and style the money coming in a little bit. And I'm going to do the gray background, but I will do dark green text. And then money going out, I'm going to change that to a kind of a peachy background with dark red text. There we go, money going out. And I think I'll just do the format painter to make sure those other cells look the same, even though they don't have any text over there. And let me go ahead and bold those too. Okay, well, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And things are looking a little bit better. And for my totals, I think I'll give those a gray background, or light blue. Yeah, that can format painter. Format painter is great for copying formats. You format one particular cell or a group of cells, and you can copy that formatting over to other cells so they all have the same identical look. All right, well, I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. And you know what, I think I will take the amount and the cost, and I'm going to right align those. Numbers by default, and they should be, numbers should be right aligned, whereas text is generally left aligned or centered. And I just like it when the text kind of lines up over those numbers, so those are right aligned. Okay, well, this is looking pretty good here. Now, I'm going to kind of ignore this chart up here for a moment, and I'm going to instead focus my attention on this big pie chart here. Yeah, it looks pretty cool for sure. Let's see if we can't do something similar. We're not trying to copy this exactly, but we want to be inspired by it and see if we can't do something kind of like it. I typically am not a fan of 3D pie charts. I think the 2D ones are actually easier to see, but we can obviously compare them and see how they go. Now this looks like it's a pie chart of all the various expenses so that we can see which category of expense happens to be the biggest chunk of our total expenses. Now, of course, we can look at this pretty easily and see for this mock student, housing at over $900 is the biggest expense they have of their $3,000 of expenses. And so if I look at housing, this is the other reason I don't like pie charts, especially these monochromatic pie charts. Monochromatic pie charts are where they pretty much all the wedges are just different shades of the same color. And there's too many categories for me because now it's hard for me to figure out which one is the blue that we're looking for. Now, of course, we can be a little bit smart about this and probably start to figure it out. But based on this, oh, I see, school costs is $975. I was going to say, wait a minute. Yeah, so housing is this one shade of teal, and that's over here, this 30%. And then the biggest one, 32%, is the school cost, which makes sense. 975 over the 906, so that's a bigger percentage. But yeah, so just using all these different shades of blue, maybe it looks pretty, but it's always a little bit tougher for me to look at. And I can imagine somebody who's got maybe some color blindness, maybe this could be a really tough map to interpret, especially when you have different categories that may be relatively close to each other in value. All right, well, I still want to make a pie chart. So I find the easiest way to make a pie chart like this is to make sure you select the appropriate data first. So I can see that this is based off of expenses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my expense values over here. Now notice I'm not selecting the total. And in this example, I'm not selecting the categories and costs either, because those may or may not be, those labels may not be part of the chart, but I can always add them later on. But it is important that I get all the various individual expense categories in those amounts. So I've selected that group, Now I can go up to the insert ribbon and I can look at all of my charts over here, and there is a pie chart category. I can click on the drop down, and there's 2D ones, which is what I tend to prefer, but they do have 3D charts on here, so I can click on the 3D chart, and pretty quickly and easily I get a pie chart that looks pretty darn good. It's maybe not as cool and polished as the one in the example, but it's already looking kind of neat, and it does use a bunch of different colors and stuff like that. It's got my legend down here that shows the category names and the colors. That looks pretty good. I'm going to give it a better chart title, so I'm just going to click up here on chart title, and I can go ahead and call this, actually they just have the word total on theirs, which I don't think that's a very good chart title. It total what? I mean, these are expenses, and maybe you'll start to figure that out, but I don't see why we can't just give it a better title. So these are basically my monthly expenses. Okay, so we've got that. Now, we can of course do all kinds of style changes to this little pie chart here. For one thing, I can click once on my legend, and that will select the whole legend. Now, the legend is pretty important on this particular chart because if I don't have the legend, I'm not going to know what the color pie wedges represent. But while that legend is selected, I can head up to the home ribbon and I can increase the font size, making the legend text a little bit bigger, and I can even stretch it out here a little bit. Have it take up more room, and let me go ahead and size this whole chart a little bit bigger. Okay. Now watch this though. I'm going to click kind of on the pie chart, but not directly on it. I guess I could do that. Oops, not what I want to do actually. I'm going to click in the corner of a pie chart. Don't ask me what the corner is, but it's where I would think the corner would be. And you notice when I do that, I get this little sizing handle and box around the actual pie chart part. Well, I can size that individually, so I can make this part different than the whole chart area. So I don't know if I really wanted to do that, but I just wanted to show you that it's possible to do that. Okay, feeling pretty good about that. Can I make that smaller there? I can make that a little bit smaller too. Good, I'll do it that way. Now let me click on a corner again, the corner of a pie chart, and I'll make that bigger again. Okay, it's actually not too bad. I'm okay with the 3D one, especially if the colors are separate, but still. All right, let's see, what else do I want to do? I want to change it so that I've got the percentages on here. That's pretty neat. So there's a way we can do that pretty easily, I think. We can right-click right on the pie chart. Just right-click once. Nope, I had to click once extra because I was deactivated off the screen. And I want to add data labels, and I can look at my choices. Oh, here we go, just add data labels. Now that puts up dollar amounts on there. That's not exactly what I wanted. So let's see, if I right click on any one of these data labels, it's going to let me format the data labels. And when I do that, it's going to open up this pane over here on the right. And I've got different things that I can do, and sure enough, percentage is one of the options. So I can do the percentage and the amount, and then I can uncheck value, and that's just going to show the percentage, which I kind of like. Now they have a few other things we could do on here too. Label position, best fit, or I can do in the center. All that kind of puts them in the center of the pie wedge. What is outside end? They're actually outside the pie wedges. Inside end? They're just inside, but on the edges. I think I like that one the best. Now, all of my labels for my pie chart are currently selected and active. I can tell because they all have the little boxes around them. So while they are active, I can use my format data labels up here, and I can go to the text options, and then I can go to, I think is it this one? Or the one on the far right here, the text box. And I actually can play around with their positioning, but no, I was looking for, yeah, so there's all kinds of options we can do here about changing colors and effects. I think this might be a little bit of overkill for labels, but something I can definitely do is head back over to the home ribbon. I can make those fonts nice and big. I can make them bold. I can even change the font if I wanted to, but I don't think I'll do that. Let's see, the color of the text, I can do that. I'm going to make it white. And I think I can expand this and give them a little bit. Yeah, just look at it. Yeah, I don't think there's any options here that are going to be too exciting for us. So I guess I'll cancel that. But you can always click on this command group for font to get a few more settings on there if you think it might be of help. All right, I guess that is okay. And I think at a glance, I like our pie chart a little bit better. Now there's a whole bunch of things we can do. You can reposition this even a little bit. So check this out. I could move this over here. I'm going to just right click somewhere on my pie chart. And I could choose, oops, no, let me do it this way. Right click in the corner of the pie chart. And I can mess around with 3D rotation. Since I don't use 3D charts that often, I'm a little bit unsure of what to do. So you just play around with the items and see what you get. And I can see there's a Y rotation. And if I click on that, oh, I can, that's the least useful pie chart I think you could ever have, right? But I could change some of that rotation so it's not quite so angled. Actually, I kind of like that. So I'm just dialing back that Y rotation. And of course, X rotation would be the X-axis, horizontal. I don't know how helpful that would be. Oh, that's actually not so bad. I don't know if I would call that the X rotation, but you can actually spin it around, so maybe you have something, one of the bigger wedges on the right or the left or at the top or the bottom. Oh, that actually was okay. Perspective. What if I mess around with that number? Ooh, that looks too weird. Yeah, it's taking the center and moving it out, so it's making it look really skewed. So let me just dial that number back to, I guess it was 0, I suppose. Can I just type a 0? No, it just wants me to go to 0.1 as the smallest cell. Okay, well, otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good about our pie chart. I think it looks better than their pie chart. Yeah. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good looking little budget. And of course, we have all of our calculations working. Oh, by the way, this pie chart is dynamically linked to the data. So for instance, let's say I went to housing, and housing wasn't $906 because, of course, maybe we live in Central Oregon or something like that. Maybe housing is $1,800. So just by changing that housing number to $1,800, it's going to have a dramatic impact on the total expenses. It's going to have a dramatic impact on the pie chart, the housing wedge. And you can see that under my income expenses, my net is now 520. When it has parentheses like that, that means negative. So it's a negative 520. In fact, I can click on this cell, and I think they've got an option in here under custom. I can go to more number formats, and let's head over to currency. And we can choose one of the red ones here. So I'll click OK. And so now it's going to, oops, I guess I wanted accounting on there. I think I did currency. But now it's got the red negative with the parentheses. And if it was positive, let's say we had more estimated income coming in, like 2,400, positive goes back into the black. Black is good. So we're in the black, we're in the red. That's where that comes from. All right. I think that's pretty good for our budget in Excel. I'm going to hit save. Pretty happy with how this is looking. I guess the only thing that I really left out was this one here, percentage of income. I don't really like this chart anymore, but we could do something like that. So percentage of income spending, I think they're just taking one over the other just to show that portion. I guess they're showing that expenses are 88% of your income. You know what, I'm going to skip that one because in reality, I don't think you should ever have a net. I think there should, I'm a big fan of a zero-based budget. So here's what I would want to do if this was my realistic budget. I'd say, boy, I have $380 extra. Well, why? You know, $380, that should have a purpose. So I'm going to go to my expenses, my money going out. We got live music starting in 9 minutes over at Silverman Brewing. I'm going to insert a row. Check this out. Right at housing, I'm going to right-click on that row number, and I'm going to choose Insert, give myself a new row, and I'm going to put Savings. Actually, I meant to put that below Housing, so let me Control Z to undo. I'll try this again. I'm going to click on Transportation, right-click and Insert. There we go. And now I'll put Savings, and I'll go ahead and put $380. So now my total expenses, I'm counting savings as an expense, something I have to do every month, right? And now that brings my total expenses up to match my total income, so my net is 0. I think that's a better way to go. All right, hit save, and this is the budget in Excel you would be turning into me. What will I be looking for? I'm going to look for some nicely formatted numerical data. I'm going to look for a little bit use of color coding and cell formatting, things like that. I want to see proper calculations in here so that if things change, the totals, the sums, the differences all calculate properly. And go ahead and create yourself a pie chart for the expenses. And if you don't want to use real life data, then obviously you can just use the same kind of data that I'm using here. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.